Welcome to Touched and Empowered, a show created to empower individuals to value their lives by hosting think tank discussions that will inspire positive action. Touched and Empowered with Katie and Ace starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this week of Touched and Empowered, thank you so very much for us. We have been trying to figure out what to talk about, and then I decided to pull out some beautiful oracle cards. I'm going to toss it to Katie, who's going
to... Which, of course, you are. Because what else can we do? We can talk about... Well, in a previous episode, we talked about how we were beginning of the year and how 2023 was a roller coaster ride of emotions and events and energy, and how now that we've gotten through the first week of 2024, what that looks like now.
So let's talk about signs. That's going to be our
that's going to be our topic instead.
Gentlemen, your inner well. There could be a sign being pointed at you, literally, like you could see a billboard, and it could say something. You do not have to do anything with that information. You get to choose it. And I want everyone to understand that your inner power to choose what to do with what is given to you is actually what's most important, not the message itself.
True. It's all how we choose to respond to the bits of information the universe is giving us versus react to them.
Right. Like the one that I just received, communication.
Which is always another good one.
Don't we look alike?
Yes, you do.
That's trippy, actually.
There's so many different ways to interpret the information that comes to us, whether it be from oracle cards or whether it be from street signs or just hearing the same song over and over and over and over and over on the radio.
Or someone yelling at the random time of day at the end of the street, "You should be a model."
That could be it too.
I've had those. Those were funny.
But I agree. It is what we choose to do with the information that we receive that empowers us as individuals to move forward in our world. We can either choose to accept, we can choose to ignore, we could choose to go right, or we could choose to go left.
Yeah. And we can choose to put a boundary. So there's a lot of media out there. There's a lot of information that's like passing us by our phones.
Yes.
Or like constant simulation. Signs, you kind of get numbed out after a while, right? But you can choose to put up a boundary so that you don't get sucked into it, because that's actually what's causing a lot of dopamine issues. So with that's why a lot of kids have ADD right now, is because they're just constantly being stimulated, and then the moment the stimulus is gone, people go into depression.
They go into withdrawal
depression. Exactly.
Right.
With that being said, like what's really important, especially now, is you actually set those boundaries with the stimulus, with the media, with what you're listening to. You can listen to us all day. That's awesome. Right?
Which we appreciate. However,
yeah, there are times when you need the quiet. You need the dopamine to reset. You need, and when I mean dopamine, I mean the dopamine in your brain.
Right.
You need the chemicals in your brain to reset. And if you have constant stimulus, if you don't put up the appropriate boundaries, you can really pull yourself into like some deep imbalances. Right.
Yes. And one of the things that I have found is to just simply turn stuff off. And it is difficult. I will admit there are times that it is very difficult for me to turn off my computers because I live at my computer. This is what I do for a living. I work, I do Zoom calls, I coach via my computer. Turning it off when it's not my regular day off sometimes I get nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to miss something. My world does not revolve around my email. I need to take time for me. And that's when I realize I need to turn it off, is so then that way I can take time for me.
And sometimes the best signs come when you're not being berated by stimulus.
True. That is
Oh my
true.
gosh. And like you can actually sit with information and be able to go, okay, in that moment of silence, you can just think, okay, this is what was going on. It wasn't this, it was that. Like you can actually take a second and really clearly sort out the different signs, the different experiences throughout your day so that you can come to the optimal conclusions for what you need to do in your life.
And it is perfectly okay to remove yourself physically from those stimulations. The best example I can give is last week, I was getting overstimulated based on stuff going on with my work, based on stuff going on with computers, emails, websites, stuff not working, phone calls, conversations that I was supposed to have, but I wasn't having. I got in my car and I drove and I sat in a park and ride parking lot for an hour and just listened to nature sounds on my phone.
Sometimes you just need that. Oh my.
It's like I needed to get away. There was nowhere quiet in my house. There's nowhere that felt quiet because there was either someone else was watching TV, or someone else had the radio on, or someone else was on the phone. There was nowhere else that was quiet. The only place I could find quiet was in a vacant parking lot. But at least it was well lit.
Yeah, safe parking lots, in my opinion, are heaven. Like,
yes.
If you go to a park and just sit there and like, some people need that escape. I don't. Sometimes they scream in the car. No, just kidding. But like,
no, I've done that too. There are times that I yell, scream, and will cry and process all of my emotions because there is no one else immediately around. Now, you do have to be careful when you do that because people who walk by your parked vehicle might give you some very strange looks. And I will admit that there was this one time where I was very angry that I was beating up the steering. This was when I was a teenager. So we're talking a couple of decades. But I was beating up the steering wheel of my car, yelling and screaming because I was really, 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 really mad. And I was trying to process. And I actually had a cop knock on my door of my car and ask me if I was okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just beating up my steering wheel instead of beating up whoever I was pissed off at. And he's like, okay, make sure you sit here for 15 minutes after you are done beating up your car to calm down before you drive off. And I'll be darned if he didn't drive by the parking lot again 15 minutes later to make sure I was calm before I left.
Smart man. Smart man.
So very smart man.
That's a perfect segue to emotions.
Which we're coming right back around to emotions.
See this card right?
That is a very pretty card for emotions. I do like that because emotions come in waves. I found.
Yeah. I want to share with that car instance with you about the emotion. Right? And I'm going to let you drive this car.
Okay.
So there was this one time in high school, right? I'm sorry, it was college. I remember screaming at the top of my lungs in the car that I was driving because I caved into saying yes to dating by myself. I stopped at a light, and when it finally hit that I caved in to say yes to dating this one person, you should never force anyone to date you. I legitimately just screamed at the top of my lungs and didn't realize my back window was open.
Well, I'm sure whoever was stopped at the red light behind you or next to you was looking around trying to figure out what was going on.
The car next to me gave me this look of like, just pure everything. Like, do I need to call it? Like, what? And I'm just sitting there like waving, thank you back. Like, there are times to let out your, otherwise, like.
There does come a time where that we all have a pressure valve when it comes to our emotions. Most of the time, there's no weight on it, especially when it's positive emotions. We want to share those emotions with everyone and everything. We don't really bottle those up very often. But the feelings of frustration, of anger, of sadness, those we tend to bottle up because we don't want to appear vulnerable to other people. And so when that breaks open, whether it be yelling and screaming at the top of our lungs or breaking down in an emotional mess and sobbing to where your makeup is running and you look like a horror movie victim. Done that too.
I have that.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to all of us. Everyone reaches something that causes the pressure to escape. And unfortunately, what happens is because we didn't process the emotions when they weren't that intense, we end up, at least I do, I end up spewing out words and saying whatever is coming into my brain. And it's normally directed at the person who didn't really cause me the hurt to begin with. It's directed at whoever's close by.
Oh, transparent.
And it causes harm not only to them, because they're now hearing all of this horrible stuff that I'm spewing aimed at them, but it's not really aimed at them. It's harming myself at the same time, because then I have all of the guilt and the shame and the, oh my God, why did I say that in front of my son? Because that's usually when the last time this happened to me, I said some really horrible things in front of my son and I felt horrible about it. After I calmed down, I was able to have a conversation with my son and explain this was not aimed at you. This was just me having a bad day. And all of this came out, all of this frustration, all of this hurt. And are we good? And of course, he said, we're good. And I'm sure he probably still thinks I'm weird, but that's okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found, though, is by taking these breaks and shutting off this overstimulus we were talking about, is it allows me to process these emotions that otherwise just get pushed aside and pushed aside and pushed aside because I'm going to the next email, the next social media post, the next social media reel, the next YouTube video, the next phone call, the next meeting, the next, and reminding myself that it's okay to take that break.
Those are actually the most healthy. Yeah, it's okay, and they're healthy. Like I really believe that you should take a good 30 minutes to process your emotions a day, even if they're painful. You know how the way to do it for some people and other people, like it's usually something artistic. That's how you're processing your emotions. You're either dancing, or you can even go for a run. You can even cook. Like those times when you're in that creative space, you're really processing your emotions.
Yeah. For some people, it's the physical. They have to dance, they have to run, they have to do something like that. Other people, it's the creative with the artwork, whether it be writing or painting or drawing. My sister, it's cooking. She processes by baking. Great for people. Yeah, I do any number of things because it depends as to what I need to process. Sometimes it's coloring, sometimes it's building with Legos, sometimes it's hiding in my car listening to nature sounds and screaming at the top of my lungs.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I want to get my coloring book now because I want to show. And I'm going to let Katie keep talking and fill the dead space as I go get my coloring book.
Okay, go get your coloring book. So what else could I talk about processing emotions? You know, I'd be interested for anyone to put comments into at least on the YouTube channel, because we can check the comments there in reference to what you do to help process both the positive and the negative. Because the positive I found is I like to take photos. When I'm having happy moments, is I like to take photos. So then that way I can remember these happy moments later on.
Oh, beautiful. You want to see? All right. So I love mandala coloring books. Do you see how black and white?
Yes.
The mandala coloring book, what I found is that makes it so satisfying if you're a Virgo.
Okay.
It is normally symmetrical. So as you're coloring, it's perfectly symmetrical. And it satisfies those OCD senses that have really put me into a bind. So, like when you're like, why things are just why can't it all just and then I can color this.
And you can keep it in the pattern and everything. And yes, that is an absolutely beautiful piece of art. And that makes perfect sense. I depend on my moods because I also color. I've got a handful of coloring books hidden on the bookcase over here. And some of them do have they're not necessarily mandalas, but they do have a pattern that you color. And there are times where I stay in the pattern and it's the same pattern for the entire page. And then there are other times that I'm just like, whatever. And it is a complete mess that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever until I go back and look at it and find out there's like a hidden, those 3D photos you would look at and you would see like the hidden ship or the hidden flower. My random colorings end up like that sometimes.
That's fun. Like, so on a really fascinating level, because I'm working with color, I'm choosing colors unconsciously. Like I actually allow myself to just choose the colors.
Okay, so you just do a random pickup of the color pencil versus looking for a particular color.
Well, I'll look for the color. I kind of like let myself kind of like look for and choose the color, but I'm not like paying attention to it until I'm done.
Oh, okay.
The reason why is because I want emotions I'm going through afterwards. It's like, so all of this right here, there's no blues. It's all like
yellows and reds and oranges.
Yellows, reds, greens, oranges. So like in this moment in time when I was coloring this, I was actually coloring from a place of like confidence and security.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like if you look at the color wheel, there are specific emotions that are like very paired with it. Right now I want to just do all blue. Right? I want peace, I want calm, I want relaxation. This is like fiery energy. Like I felt that energy the day that I colored this specific mandala. And it's like it's helpful for me to just like take a break to look at, okay, I'm in this mode. Cool. That's good to know that I was in that mode. Because sometimes we don't know what emotions we're going through.
True. And it's nice that you have the colors that you can go to as a indicator as to what emotions you are currently going through at that particular moment in time. And I'm sure that that's the case for a lot of artists who use color, whether it be painting or drawing or anything else like that. But for the others outlets, like music, for example, I wonder if it's the same thing with, say, the style of music.
Yeah, like there are times when I want to just sing rock.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? There are other times that you're just like, I don't know if anyone likes singing hymns or opera or any of that nature. There are moments when I like to sing ethereally, but
and then there are times that it's the musicals that I grew up with, because I grew, even though it wasn't my generation, I grew up with the Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, so I'll sing those, but I have to be in the right emotional mindset to sing those, because if I'm angry, I can't sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Fair, but I don't care, Garland. That song, by the way.
That's true.
That is one of the most amazing masterpieces I've ever seen in my. I remember watching this and not knowing who the singer was, and you told me who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just the most brilliant piece of music I've ever heard in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll drop it in the chat. Oh, we'll drop it. If you
I'll find that link on Spotify or something. Yeah.
Thank you. If you have a day where you're just like, I need to just chalk everything up and throw my hands up, this is the song to listen to. Like.
So we've determined that yes, music can help indicate what kind of mood you're in. So, for baking, I don't know. I would actually have to check with my sister to see if she can tell what mood she's in based on what it is that she bakes. because she does all baked goods. She really doesn't do much any other kind of cooking.
Mm.
So that would be interesting.
Oh yeah, and I think like there is such good music out there right now that just
Yes.
hits because your emotions are like, we all feel, but can we listen, hear, watch, and see something that helps us feel?
Mm,
That's a masterpiece.
that is a masterpiece because there are some pieces of music that do, for lack of a better term, strike a chord with a certain emotion that, when played really well, the audience feels that, like to their core level. And there are lots of musicians out there who have the capability of doing that. But I believe that the best way to experience it is with a live musical performance.
Those are actually like, I know I'll listen to music online. Sometimes I can feel the feelings,
Right.
but there's nothing like a live performance to really understand why these like artists really come out there with their hearts out, their emotions, how everyone leaves the room a different person. It's
Yes. And it's the same thing with, a particular song. The same song could be sung by 30 some different people, and you could have heard it 30 some different times. And then all of a sudden, this one person sings it, and it's magical. Because
right?
at that moment in time, the emotion that they were inflecting is an emotion that you were able to receive and process and experience and either enjoy or break down in tears and cry, but you were there in that moment with the person performing.
Exactly. Take, for example, you know that song I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston?
Yes.
There's like a huge difference between take my life, take me for what versus take my life. Like when you give
Right.
your heart a sound, it changes people.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that particular song because I didn't care for that song until I watched Bodyguard.
Ooh,
and watched her
yeah,
sing it in Bodyguard. And that's when I was like, oh, now I understand the emotion behind that song. Now I
right.
can feel it. Now it's on my playlist.
And my heart will go on from Titanic. I didn't like at first I was like, oh, this is a great song to sing on karaoke. Then I watched the movie
Yep.
and I was like crying when I heard the song in the credits. I was like, oh, I get it now.
It's amazing how the context of the situation makes the content of the song so powering. And this just aha for me. It's the same thing as to the context of our lives makes the emotions around an event either empowering or disempowering. And nobody knows what's going on context wise in our world unless they happen to be a part of our world on a daily basis and see everything.
Yeah.
And the best example I can give of this is there is a song from, I want to say it's from the 50s or the 60s. I'll actually have to look it up. But it's a song that has words along the lines of "I'm crying because I watched a sad movie." When actuality, she's crying from a broken heart because she was just dumped by her boyfriend. But she was giving the excuse, "I'm crying because I watched a movie." And the only reason that's coming up in my brain right now is because I remember my mom singing that song about sad movies. And that's when I realized that sad movies was one of the things that I had used to hide my emotions when I was a teenager.
I see.
Because it was easy for me to quickly throw a oh my God, I'm dating myself, throw a VHS into the VCR and, oh, I'm just watching a sad movie, don't mind me.
Oh, okay, that's why somebody was trying to. I was like, everyone processes their emotions in different ways, and someone
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Freeman, do you want? You're gonna watch a movie?" I'm like, "I don't want to watch a movie. What's wrong with you?" And like, now I get it. I get it.
Yeah, because sometimes, like we were talking about with music, we were talking about with art, movies are another way that can help us pull those emotional pieces out so then we can process. Now, I don't recommend watching a whole day full of the same type of movie, especially if it is scary movies. Well, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to put that disclaimer in there because my sister does it all the time. She's a
Pixar,
scary movie nut.
I gotcha. Pixar movies, they're great.
Yes, Pixar movies are really good at pulling out the emotion.
Oh yeah, your child wounds that we all. Oh heck yeah, Disney, thanks. Thank you very much for helping us heal those hidden repressed that we didn't know needed to heal. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I think the one that got me the most was Inside Out, which is the one that was with all the different emotions.
Ocean.
Well,
Yes.
the emotions have emotions. Yeah, that messed with my brain.
That one was like joy can act. Wait, no, it can't. It's
Yeah,
joy.
when Joy had to pretend to be sadness and she flops herself down on the ground. I'm so sad. Oh wait, look, there's the path I need to go to find.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was great when the emotions had it was
With the
that.
emotions and emotions.
Oh, that and then when the elements had emotions. I did like
I
Elemental.
forgot. Elemental was good.
Oh,
Elemental was good. There was a lot of
hacking on that one.
there was a lot of also hidden emotions in it that I missed the first time I watched it. It wasn't until I went back the second time that I saw more of the emotional struggle of wanting to be accepted.
Yeah, you see that film. The first time I watched, I was like, all right, this is like a first. I love how that we're going to correlate this with dates because this is going to be part of my.
That's
That's how it works. So I remember
how it works.
I go on a date with somebody. You know, I'm heavily invested in somebody if I go on a Pixar movie with you because that means I'm going to cry.
Good to know.
Right. So we go. We watch it. First layer that I got to see was, oh my gosh, my immigration parents and the first American born child healing right there. All of, oh my goodness, we're going through
Yeah.
all of that stress. I used to get angry like the fire little one
Yep.
because I was the wrong path and I would just freaking light up a flame. I wasn't actually following my heart. That stuff. I was like, oh my God, thanks for healing me, Pixar. Just throw it in my face with the fire element. And then the water element, funny enough, guy I was dating had a fun, right? We always
Very fun.
oh, great. Yeah. And fire and water, just seeing how they could possibly come together.
And I think that's, one of the things I've noticed about most, I will say most, because I don't know if it applies to all of them, because I haven't seen all of them, but for most Disney movies, at least in the last couple decades, is that they are putting in this emotional aspect to help us recognize and heal, which I know that was not the case in some of their earlier ones because their original animated films were all based on classic fairy tales. And yes, there are emotional lessons in those that they do pull
Yeah.
those heartstrings.
You
But
hear
I
about
don't
how
know
the
if it's
brothers,
on everything.
you know how like there was like a time when somebody told the Brothers Grimm, like, hey, you kind of need to change the ending to your stories.
Yes, and then I go back and I read some of those, and I was like, I would love to see it redone in the original Grimm version.
Did you see the two movies that semi didn't go all the way because it was that gruesome? Talk about emotion.
Which
Oh my
ones?
God. My goodness, the horror. I apologize. The so there's one where it's Grimm where it's Heath Ledger and I believe Matt.
Right. I think that was called Brothers Grimm. I remember that one.
That one actually talked about the fairy tales to a semi degree. Then Into the
Right.
Woods of it,
Yeah. Into the Woods is
as close as we get.
probably as close as we'll get because they're probably never going to go any darker than that between Brothers Grimm and unless you get into the horror film realm of classical fairy tales.
That's our emotions festival to another degree, ladies and gentlemen. It was a hard time during the Brothers Grimm. Get why they went there, but we don't need to go there anymore. That's why you should let out your emotions now before it gets there.
Yes, and there are a lot of authors who have taken those classic tales and have rewritten them so they apply to our current lifetime. I'll say current within the last 50 years versus being written back in the before the 1800s. And I think that also helps us process our emotions because
100%.
we can process the emotions easier if we think that it's not our emotions that we're I'm just processing the emotions of this character in this book instead of I'm really crying because this happened to me. Maybe that's just a Katie thing.
No, I think that's like it's cool, you know, like there.
But yes, movies are a great way to process emotions, but there have been some books that I have read that are fiction, have no base in reality. We're talking vampires, werewolves, completely paranormal activity. But the trials and tribulations of the characters in these books mirrored an incident in my life when I was much younger. And I could feel the heartache of the main character because it was a heartache I was familiar with. And that is just very cleverly written dialogue in a book to be able to pull that kind of emotion from someone. So I'm just saying that books might be another way to process emotions if you come across a section of a book that happens to be dealing with a scene that pulls on that emotional heartstring.
Yeah, you know what's trippy? All right, folks, don't make the stories your life.
Yeah, you don't want to live in a story.
No, and it was funny because I was going through an experience with somebody, right? I was like along for the ride. I got to just like kind of experience something I've never experienced before in regards to like, hey, this is how our relationship is going, etc.
Okay.
And I read this book and then I realized, oh, this person was trying to recreate this in their life without knowing it was on a subconscious level.
Yeah, there are times that there are some stories that have elements that I would love to recreate in my world. However, I don't think that I am going to be seeing any dragons and unicorns anytime soon.
No comments yet.
Thank you for that. I love you for that. Thank you.
Yet. I honestly believe that like unplugging, you know, the unplugging from the signs or the constant stimulus of
Right.
looking outside of what you're going through, taking that moment to really process what's happening. I honestly believe having a really good reality check on that
Yes.
so imperative right now because we could see signs and we could, oh, it's destiny. We're do X, Y, and Z. My name this person's name keeps popping up on signs and cars and blah 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 blah. Yeah, you
My
get to,
name my name showed up as a heroine in a pirate book.
yeah, my name shows up in hardware. So folks, choose what you will with the information given, but understand
Yes.
that you have that choice. That is your power. You get to choose what to do with that information.
And if that information helps you process your emotions, then just say thank you for letting me process and then let it go. You don't have to hold on to it.
Or you can go to the web and say thank you. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep bringing this up till it's gone. I still can't believe it's happening. Folks.
So on that note, as Ace tries to get a hold of themselves in reference to this wedding, just for that, we're going to post that podcast early. I'm just saying. Thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that the discussion today will inspire you to take positive action in your life. Until next week, be empowered.